So the article tells a story of multiple 80-something-year-old guys who own publications that are fine businesses. Maybe they make 6 figures a year in profit, but they can't find anyone to take it over, so they're literally just shutting it down.
Should we start with this tweet? It's Media Gazer, which I guess some media
Publication.
It's commentary on media companies. It says small town newspapers are shutting down due to lack of a succession plan, not financial issues. In nearly a dozen U.S. states, this is a growing problem. Okay.
And so the article tells a story of multiple 80-something-year-old guys who own publications that are fine businesses. Maybe they make 6 figures a year in profit, but they can't find anyone to take it over, so they're literally just shutting it down. And here we have a tweet from Matthew Prince. I think his name is Matthew is worth, I think, something like $4 or $5 billion. He's the CEO of Cloudflare. Do you want to kind of read what he says?
Yeah. So he says, actually, this is a recipe for a really rewarding life. If you're a recent college grad and not sure what to do, find a small town you could love with a local newspaper whose owners are ready to retire. Raise the capital to buy it, run it with the community's interests at heart. You'll not get too rich, but you'll do well. More importantly, you'll be a hero to the community and have influence even early in your career. You'll meet the love of your life at some point, at some event you otherwise wouldn't get invited to. You'll have kids who will proudly call you their parent and make this corner of the world meaningfully better. If anyone wants to seriously follow this recipe and just lacks the capital, happy to talk.
So I think that's an amazing insight, but the true insight, so someone chirps at them and they say something like, go ahead, what do they say? I can't read it all.
So literally the guy's name who's replying is some guy. So I'm not even disparaging this guy. Some guy tweets at him and says, this is the sort of unwittingly funny stuff that wealthy people say, that 130 IQ guys should be content with an imaginary small town life lived in anonymity near, I don't even know what this word is, being 180 degrees from their own choices, which deliver untold wealth and influence. What is this guy saying? I don't even understand this tweet. He's basically saying like, this is something that wealthy dudes say that's so funny because it's so wrong that a guy would be happy doing this. Is that what he's saying?
And here's why I like Twitter. So Matt Prince, he's not high profile. He's not like an average, like the average person has no idea who this is, but he's worth $5 billion. And it's so interesting to get his insight. So this is the tweet that I really care about. And the rest was for context. Read this next one.
All right. So he says, he just replies to some guy. He goes, I have untold financial wealth and I own a local newspaper. So I have some perspective. Like Warren Buffett likes to say, surprisingly little changes when you move from upper middle class to truly rich. Houses are houses, cars are cars, and watches are stupid. That's so good. What's more important is meaning. I feel lucky to have achieved financial wealth while chasing meaning. That is super rare, and I feel incredibly fortunate to have gotten both. But if you're early in your career and decide, I'd rather optimize for meaning than financial wealth, I think this is a better path than most would consider. Example, volunteer for the Peace Corps. It will actually make you a good living, and you'll have incredible influence and meaning within your community. And if you later decide to go for untold financial wealth, always remember, Rupert Murdoch's empire began with the Adelaide Advertiser, which he bought when he was 21.
How fantastic is that?
This is really great. Although, not to be a reply guy, but like Cloudflare is not the Peace Corps or owning a small town newspaper in a community. So like, is he saying that Cloudflare was his meaning thing or he did something before that? Do you know?
That's his meaningful thing. Okay. But the point is, for one,
by the way, he has another one. So he's like, some guy goes, how is one supposed to make a good living from a small town newspaper? Do you have a new model for profitability? Blah, blah, blah. I want to hear a breakdown. And he said, Matthew Prince says, the local paper we bought cash flowed around $600,000 when we bought it. We wanted to run it as a nonprofit, so we plowed that all back into expanding coverage. But it is not the case that these are bad businesses. They're just not big businesses.
So the takeaway is multiple things. One, newspapers are dying. Local newspapers, we're talking towns that have 5,000 people, 10,000 people, 30,000 people. They are not dying. And if you read the replies, you'll see people who are saying, I own a local newspaper that does $500,000 in EBITDA. Like there are replies here, and Matt just said one of those replies where he explains the numbers. But two, it's just so fascinating to hear this guy's perspective who has so much. And I actually agree with him. And I also think that there is a big opportunity to buy a bunch of these, but you can just start with one. And I don't think local newspapers are going to go away anytime soon, to be honest. I think that they have a very stable subscriber base. And what Matt says in there, He says something like hospitals and other like local businesses, they are dying to advertise in local newspapers, and that business, while small, is doing great and is very it's a monopoly.
Okay, I love this one. 10 out of 10, fine. Good job. Hey, I got a quick break because I want to tell you something cool. So our sponsor for this episode is HubSpot, but instead of the ad telling you about HubSpot, they just want to do something that's useful for you. So they did some research and they found that a bunch of people in our community have side hustles. They start a business on the side, they get it going, and then it becomes their main hustle over time. And so instead of just telling you about the features of HubSpot, they wanted to give you something that will be useful for your side hustle. And so they have put together a database of AI prompts, so things that you could put into ChatGPT or your favorite AI tool that will help you with your side hustle. So check it out. It's going to save you a bunch of time, I think. It's a prompt database that you should be using to make your side hustle more successful. And you could use this as your little personal little cheat sheet, your tool set to be a better operator with your side hustle. So you can either scan this QR code that's on the screen or get the link in the description to get the AI prompt database. All right, back to the show. I gave a talk at Berkeley that was about starter businesses, or I called them white belt businesses, a few months ago.
Wait, let's reflect on that. That's pretty cool.
What, giving a talk?
At Berkeley? I don't know. That sounds cool to me. I never got to go to fancy colleges.
It was hilarious. So I'm like, I'm going to give this talk. And I think I've told this story before, but my entire life shifted because I was in a random class at Duke. I planned to be a doctor. I had taken the MCATs, all of it. And then I took this one class by this amazing woman, Lisa Keister. And she herself had graduated 10 years earlier and gotten wealthy, lived an interesting life, and came back to teach. And she decided, like, what class did the kids actually need? And the class was called Getting Rich. It's kind of like this podcast, My First Millions, like sort of a pretty crude title. Her class was called Getting Rich. And actually, it was two things. It was personal finance. So you'd learn about like mortgages and savings and how that all worked, compounding, shit like that. And then secondly, she would invite speakers in just so that we would get exposed to other ideas of what a life could be besides doctor, lawyer, consultant, banker, which was like, you know, at a school like Duke, that's where 90% of the students are devoting their energy. And a guy came in and he gave a talk and it literally changed my life. It's not even something he said. I just kind of was like, this guy seems like he's having fun. Doesn't seem like he's that much smarter than me. Like, you know, maybe smarter now, but he's saying at the beginning he didn't know shit about shit. And that's where I am today. And like, why don't I just do what this guy's doing? And the last thing he had said was like, he's like, look, if you go try to do something entrepreneurial or interesting and it doesn't work out, this is America. That baby, like the story is a currency for you. And look, I hire kids like you. And guess what? You all have the same top 3/4 of the resume. You go to school, you got a 3-point-something GPA, you have some stupid extracurricular activities, you got an internship at some big corporation where you didn't really make an impact. The only thing that differentiates any of you guys is the other section at the bottom of your resume. Like, have you done anything? Have you gone on any interesting quests? And so he's like, go on an interesting quest. You have nothing to lose right now. You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. Just go try some shit. And if you fail, if it works, fantastic. If it fails, don't worry. It creates a great story that guys like me like to hear. So that like really shifted my life. And so I get invited to go give this talk at Berkeley. And I'm like, I'm going to do this, man. I'm going to change someone's life. I'm going to be a life changer today. And I prepped my ass off. Like I really tried. I thought about it. I spent 2 days really like full, like just 10 hours a day, just working on this one talk. 2 days doesn't sound like a lot, but like I show up to these podcasts pretty cold. Like I can wing it with the best of them. So for me to really put 20 hours into one talk I'm going to give to 50 kids, that was unusual for me.
You sound like the Kenny Powers of giving a talk, man. You're like, get ready, kids. I'm gonna make you piss tears. Like,
exactly. hold on to your butts. I'm about to rock your world. So I go in, and guess what? These kids really just don't give a fuck. Within 2 minutes of the talk, and again, I'm trying to fire on all cylinders. It's interactive. I'm cracking jokes. I got a story. I have a big promise at the beginning. And I look around and I just remembered vividly in that moment. I was like, oh, I remember being 19. You're not even out of school yet. Like the real world is it's a distant land far away at this point. And you're just you're like, okay, I have to be here till 5 and then I'm going to go eat. And then I have that paper to write.
3 years out of your target demo too. Like they're Indian, they go to Berkeley, and you're like thinking like, all right, perfect, this is my demo. And then you're like, shit, they're still 19. I need to wait till they're 21 until they have heard of me.
Exactly. So honestly, it was a kind of a giant waste of time. I don't think I shifted anyone's life. I think I changed exactly 0 lives, but I really tried. And one of the principles in there was like, when you get out of Berkeley, instead of getting a job, like consider, doing a company. But for most of you, you don't have the next Facebook. You don't have the next big idea. And maybe you're not even talented enough to handle. That's like, kind of like if Jessica Alba walked through that door and she's like, it's like, dude, you couldn't handle Jessica Alba right now anyways. Don't worry about it. That's not your problem. Like you need to go, put your hand under Mindy's shirt in the back behind the bleachers over there. Like that's the level you're at right now. And so I basically was like, you need a starter business, a white belt business. And I was giving them ideas for what simple starter businesses are. What?
Was this your analogy? Did you just?
No, I just did that one analogy? Just now. I thought
That's
you might
pretty
like
good.
That.
Yeah.
Well, see, the funny thing is I have you and I'm like, Sam's going to love this. He's going to hate this. And then I'm like, Arie's just going to hate this. And sure enough, as I'm saying it, that's what I got. I got Sam laughing, but face palming, and Arie just looking off into the distance, wondering, how did I end up here? Why do I have this job?
Oh my God, no, that's a fantastic analogy because it's very true. Everyone dreams of like the Jessica Alba doing that, and you're like, wait, what do I do? What do I do with my hands? You know what I mean? It's perfect.
Exactly. You are not prepared for Jessica Alba yet, and that's okay. You just need some reps.
And so, what's the point of this? What are you going to show me?
Oh, I guess the tie to that was, I think owning a local newspaper is a fantastic version of a starter business to run. Was that not obvious? That was so crystal clear to me, the connection.
Show me this story about Steve Ballmer, and then also I want to see the Gary Vee one.
Okay, 2 great choices. Excellent choices off the menu. All right. This is from, I believe, Steve Ballmer goes on the Acquired podcast.
It was really good. It was so good.
I agree. I didn't watch it, but I agree. And the clips have been good. And so he's telling this story, and they go, do you guys know the story of Key Lou at Microsoft? He was one of the most pivotal things at Microsoft. And then the hosts go, why? I mean, I knew he's important, but please tell the story. And Steve goes, he was pivotal in a way that you won't even know. So he goes, first of all, he's a brilliant guy, great guy. He's at Yahoo, and he went to grad school with the head of Microsoft Research, Harry. And so the setup here is that Satya Nadella, who's now the CEO of Microsoft, was running Bing at the time. Bing is trying to compete with Google. And Harry runs the research program there. And Harry comes and he goes, look, this guy Key is a genius. We have to hire Key. I don't know if Key wants to work for us. We got to learn from this guy. We got to hire this guy. So he's like, Satya Nadella, Steve Ballmer, and Harry all fly down to California to meet with this guy, Key Lou. And they talk to Key and they're like, dude, you're right. This guy's brilliant. And we're learning about him. And then at one point, Key walks away, leaves the room, goes to the restroom or something. And he goes, Satya throws out this idea. He goes, we should hire Key and I should work for him. He goes, so Harry, who's all in because he worked with them, Harry works for Satya. And Satya's like, we should not only hire this guy, I should work for him. I should report to him, like gives up power basically. So they call him and they're like, Key, listen, he was thinking about taking a job somewhere else, but he ends up joining. And he goes, and the host goes, so what did Key do at Microsoft? He goes, what I just told you. He told me about Satya. He goes, I love Satya. And we were giving him more and more responsibilities anyways. But when I saw that this guy would do the right thing for the company, he would give up power to bring in a more talented person and agree to work for him. He didn't have ego that got in the way. I knew that Satya was the guy. And now Satya has become the CEO of Microsoft and led Microsoft on this incredible run.
That's so good. That's a great story.
It's up 1,000%. And for a company as big as Microsoft to go up 1,000% and now is a $3 trillion company, all under Satya's kind of regime, I thought that was just a badass story, right?
And later on in the podcast, Steve Ballmer talks about philanthropy, and I don't know how rich he is, but I think 100 billion or plus. And he was like, the Acquired guys were like, your wealth is growing, I think 20% a year, $20 billion, whatever. He goes, yeah, I'm trying to give it all away. And he goes, you're forgetting about something. And the host go, what? He goes, Microsoft pays a dividend. So just my dividends are making me $1 billion a year. And he's like, he goes, I'm trying to give it all away and I can't find enough people who can accept the money.
Well, Steve, we would love to help you with this problem. We're a helpful bunch over here.
Yeah, he was talking about how he's like, I forget the capital appreciation of this, or the stock appreciation. Lately, it's been what, 15% a year. I forget. It's something like magnificent where he's earning tens of billions of dollars from that. And yeah, he corrected the guys when they said how wealthy he is. He goes, "You're forgetting about our dividend, which pays me $1 billion."
You know, he's just been sitting on that. By the way, you know, he's like, these motherfuckers out here don't know. They don't know how I'm balling.
It was a really great podcast. It was like 3 hours long and it was fantastic. And he gets made fun of, or Ballmer gets made fun of a bunch for that one video where he just looks goofy. But he's a great salesman, and he's way more technical than people realize. Ballmer's a genius.
That's cool. I mean, you got to be special. I mean, there's luck is involved, but I think it's so easy to write people off. And he's a great example of enthusiasm as a skill. I've talked about this in a bunch of other podcasts, but enthusiasm is a actual skill. And that video that people make fun of him, the developers. To me, that's like watching, Vince Carter dunk or something like that, right? It's like, this is a guy who probably brought a shit ton of energy and enthusiasm and belief and to the team in an unwavering way and at an unusual level. And yeah, that was obviously funny to laugh at. I get it. I thought it was funny as shit too. But enthusiasm is a skill, and I love it because people don't even think of it as a skill, but we all know it when we see it. Like if you ever worked with somebody who's really enthusiastic and is a believer in what you're doing and brings good energy every day and doesn't get worn down and doesn't get buckled by adversity, you love that person. That person's clearly valuable to the team. You would hate if that person left your team. Yet nobody talks about enthusiasm as a skill or something you could practice or develop, or at least even celebrate that you have. It's something that, seems like something sort of for dumb people.
What's this Gary Vee one?
This is really funny. All right. This is Gary. I love Gary Vee. Gary, I love you. This is also hilarious. So they're playing a game called Bullish and Bearish, where the host is going to tell him a company name and he has to decide, is he a bull or a bear on it? Watch this.
Meta.
Bullish.
Reddit.
Bullish.
Alphabet.
Bullish.
Waymo.
I'm not educated enough to give an answer on that, to be honest.
Nvidia.
I feel like if I spend 10 hours educating myself, I'm like, oh, okay, this is not sustainable to be this crazy.
Disney.
Disney, very bullish. I think intellectual property is one of the most underrated businesses of the future of VR and everything. I don't think people understand how big owning IP is going to be.
Tesla.
Bullish.
Microsoft.
Very bullish.
OpenAI.
I'm bullish.
Amazon.
Very bullish.
Zoom.
Bullish.
Alibaba.
Bullish.
ByteDance. TikTok's parent company.
Bullish.
Even though it might be banned.
Bullish.
Coinbase.
Bitch, I'm bullish, okay? Don't even, before that word gets out of your mouth, I'm bullish. What am I going to do? I'm bullish. Dude, how funny is this?
I love Gary. It sucks because she picked like...
Honestly, I can't hate. I'm also pretty bullish on all the tech companies all the best companies in the world. I'm pretty bullish on them too.
Amazon and ChatGPT.
So funny.
Dude, people forget. I think VaynerMedia, I track it because I like Gary, and I think that it's easy to dismiss him as like a guru. But VaynerMedia is doing something like $300 million a year right now.
I did not know that. And when you say you track it, where are you getting this information from?
So I actually, do you remember how I told you I had this document where I track companies and I track people where I will make a timeline of their life, and like at different ages, they do different things. I track it with a variety of companies as well. And VaynerMedia, I was curious about their trajectory. And he was growing the company like at a really good clip. Like it was doubling for a couple of years, and it was still growing at like 50% for a couple of years. And so I just wanted to check in and add to my document. And over the last 3 or 4 years, he's grown it to something like $250 million a year in revenue. And if you Google VaynerMedia revenue, he actually is fairly public about it lately of where it's at. But it's in the 200, 300 range.
200 to 300 million a year?
Yeah.
And what do they do now? Is it just marketing services, or what's going on?
So VaynerX, which is now the holding company, in 2024 was on track to do $300 million in revenue, and this was written in December of 24. So yeah, you could assume that they're in the 300 million range. Yeah, it does. They do social media. It's the same shit. Just they manage people's social media stuff.
I mean, it's got to be more of that. Manage people's social media stuff. It's got to be more of that.
I think that's the bulk of it. They do social media advertising and campaigns. So like if you're Samsung and you want to run ads on Facebook and you want to make really good ads,
Well,
I believe
okay, let's ignore VaynerMedia on board. What is the most interesting thing that's come out of your tracking people manually year by year, borderline creepy stalker thing that you're doing?
What's interesting to me is a few things. One, the ability to grow it gets harder and harder, but like the people who are like really big animals, they just figure out how to do it. And that's really fascinating to me. But occasionally, even companies that are growing quickly, they'll have 2 or 3 years of no or little growth. And the reason why I like to do this research is it helps me understand. I think that it's the same way when you talk to your rich friends and you talk about money with them, you start to normalize money. And that's why I do this stuff where like
it sounds like it's like almost like an emotional regulation, because entrepreneurship is this longer than you want, more up and down thing than you want. And seeing that the things you admire today, either took a long time or had, multiple flat years, it makes you not feel like shit when you're in one of those, periods. That it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think I showed you the revenue chart, or no, I've shown you charts before of Business Insider, which is a company I also used to do this for. And they've grown like crazy, but there was like 3 years where every single month they actually didn't grow. And I was like, this chart looks great because we've zoomed out to 15 years. But zoom in on those 3 years and imagine feeling that way for nearly 1,000 days. That doesn't feel good.
Right.
That doesn't feel good at all.
The whole life of the company right now is 3 years. Imagine this whole time just flat,
Or I'll give you another example. Replit. We've had Amjad on the podcast, and that was one of our biggest ones. They just announced the other day that they hit 100 million in revenue. That's huge, right? Well, what he kind of said, like in a small comment, like in a reply, is that I believe last year or the year before, they're at 10 million in revenue. So they went from 10 million to 100 million in record time, like 1 year or 2 years, something like that. But what he told us on the podcast is that he started the company 8 years ago, which means from years 0 to 8, he got to 10 million in revenue, which is not impressive. That's neat. That's not impressive. And that's just insane to me that he kept at it for 8 years and then, and tell me if I'm getting my numbers wrong, but he kept at it for that long and then success was like in 2 years.
Yes and no. I think you're right, but it's not like it was just failing that whole time. Because if you look at the user growth of developers, and I think I tweeted this out with it, I'll find it, but like, basically, they were growing exponentially in number of users who were developers. So that was also happening at that same time. And so it's not as like, oh man, it's just, suddenly it starts to work. Like, I mean, look at this. This is Paul Graham tweeting about Replit before they even turned on monetization. So this is back in 2020. But like,
what year does that go to?
Right? This is 2015. To 2020, like midway through 2020, or end of 2020, so basically 2021. And so they had 5 million developers, programmers using their thing. And Paul talks about, he says, this graph is impressive, not just for its perfect exponential shape, but the numbers. 5 million users is a lot when those users are programmers. Imagine how many users their users will have of their apps. And I think the crazy thing about Replit is that basically they pivoted the entire company when they were at $1 billion valuation. I invested in Replit, I think at an 800 million-ish valuation, 8 or 900 million valuation. I invested in the fund and I invested personally because I was like such a big believer in this. And they had pretty much no revenue at the time, but it was this type of growth. And I loved the product and I loved Amjad. I was like, this guy's a savage. And they built an incredible product that I think will have a network effect over time. And then they pivoted the entire business to say, it's not about like young programmer, because I thought, they're getting young programmers to start coding on Replit, and maybe those people will never leave. They'll code their whole career on Replit. And then when AI happened, they pivoted basically the entire company to now it's not even for programmers. It's for people who don't code typically, to make things, right? It's for non-engineers to suddenly be able to be engineers, to be able to create software for software creators. And now that's ramped to 100 million at 10x. They 10x their revenue in 1 year. So now I look like a genius investing in this thing, but I really didn't even invest in this because they pivoted. They like basically shifted the entire user. Who is the user and what is the use case? Afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, this is just insane. I use Replit probably 3 or 4 times a week. It's really fun.
I just asked ChatGPT to make this. This is Sam stalking all these businesses.
Dude, I do this like crazy. I'm gonna have to share this doc. I like tracking numbers.
You sent it to me when we first met. You were like, I took every billionaire and I tried to figure out what they were doing at age 30. And I was like, what? And you were like, Jack Dorsey, you know, at age 30, his net worth was only what? And I was like, how do you know this? And why do you know this? What are you doing? And you're like, by the time I'm 30, my goal is to have X. I think we probably met when we were 24, 25 years old, something like that.
25, yeah.
And you were like, when I'm 30, I want to have $20 million in the bank. Yeah. That was your number. And you were like, look at this. I'll be ahead of Jeff Bezos and Jack Dorsey and these guys. And I was like, yo, this guy's a sicko, but I like it.
It was I should call, like, if I teach a class, it's going to be called, like, how to become an economic animal. Unfortunately, like, there's many levels to this, and there's many people who are way above me, and I didn't understand, like, how exponential growth works. But hey, I think I got in the arena of what I was aiming for.
All right, so we got to talk about the new mayor. Not because this is a politics podcast. I don't know. Actually, I didn't even know this guy existed until 3 days ago, to be honest with you. But you're moving to New York, and you seem to know about this guy, and I am following him only from a business and marketing perspective. I have a business and marketing take on this guy, but can you first set the context for people like me who are not following who this New York City, he's the mayor, right? That's what he just became?
He's going to be the Democrat who's running for mayor. So it was the Democrats were, I don't even know the right terms, but
nomination.
And he won. So basically, it was him and Cuomo.
Because New York is very Democratic, he's most likely to win. Is that why people are freaking out? Because normally, if he's just a candidate,
more likely than not. The issue is here. The issue has a bunch of issues. Basically, every politician is corrupt. So Mayor Cuomo is running for mayor. He was previously the governor. He got in trouble for, like, asking his coworkers to have sex with him. And he was the guy running against this guy. The current mayor, Mayor Adams, he has accepted bribes. He is going to be running as an independent versus this guy. And so we're kind of like stuck with like a bunch of
rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, it's like, South Park, it's like a douche or a turd sandwich. Who are you going to vote for? That's kind of like what we're working with here. The gist of this guy is that he's incredibly charismatic. He's 32 years old. He believes in a lot of crazy things. That's my opinion, crazy, but basically a lot of socialist things. So, for example, he wants to freeze rent, meaning you can't raise rent on I think something like 2 million different apartments, different rent stabilized apartments. He also wants to create government-owned grocery stores and a handful of things like that are very controversial to people who don't like socialism. But amongst young people who are very angry about a lot of things that they should be angry about, like housing costing a lot of money versus the wage growth. But he's super charismatic, and so he won over young people's votes.
And so, okay, great summary. Now, again, I don't care about the politics of this, and I don't live in New York, but I'm fascinated by this guy. Like, I literally had never heard of this guy, and then I watched this video. I saw this tweet.
He killed it.
So this tweet right here has 3.7 million views. So that's just the Twitter part of this. Forget Instagram, TikTok, anywhere else that I'm sure he's posting this type of content. But first of all, the branding. So, like, that was the first thing that stood out to me. Like, literally the branding of this guy, like the font, et cetera. So what is this video? It starts like he's a TikTok content creator. And it says, New York is suffering from a crisis. And it's called halalflation. And then he talks about how halal from the food trucks, chicken and rice halal from like a halal food truck now costs $10, but it used to cost $8. And he basically goes and he's interviewing them. He's like, how much do you sell for? $10, whatever. We'll play the video.
New York is suffering from a crisis, and it's called halalflation. Today, we're going to get to the bottom of this. How much does a plate of halal cost right now from this truck?
$10.
$10. Chicken over rice, lamb over rice, $10.
$10?
Yeah.
When you're a street vendor, you have to pay for the food, the plates. How much do you have to pay for your permit?
Before it was 22K.
17,000.
How much does a license cost if you get it from the city?
I think 400.
And who are you paying?
The permit owner.
You're not paying the city.
No.
You pay the permit owner $22,000 just so you can sell this food.
Yes.
And who is this?
A random guy.
Have you ever applied for a permit?
Yeah, I'm applying and no come anything.
It's long wait. Number 3,800 something. And
After 2 years, you're number 3,800.
yes.
These are the 4 bills that are sitting in the city council right now, which would give these vendors their own permits and make your halal more affordable. But Eric Adams hasn't said a single word about them. If you own the permit, then how much would you charge for the plate?
$7.
$8.
$8.
Would you rather pay $10 for a plate of halal or $8?
$8.
I think $8 is the way to go.
If I was the mayor, I'd be working with city council from day one to make halal $8 again.
Oh, how would it taste?
Tastes like $10, but it should be 8.
So I was blown away because I have never really seen a politician doing this type of like, I want to call it like kind of natural influencer content. I don't know what do you even call this, but this is not what politicians typically did.
He's making like a Vice documentary, but in 2 minutes. It's very good. He's
doing UGC content. Okay, I think that's the way I would put it. So the same thing happened in business, especially e-commerce. So Sam, I don't know if you remember, like in the earlier days of e-com, right? Like let's say 2012, 2014, you mostly did just static images. Okay, there was not really a lot of video on, let's say, Facebook or Google at the time. So you would do static images for your ads, but those images you would pay a professional designer to make, and they would make it look slick, and then that's what people would click. And then when video came out, people tried to do the same thing. They would basically film professional-looking videos. You'd hire a videographer, you'd have somebody holding the camera, and then you'd have a good background, good lighting, and you would say your thing. But it turns out that commercials didn't really work as well on the internet as me picking up my phone and just making something that looks very raw, like I'm doing my, it'd be a girl doing her makeup while talking about a different product, right? And it just feels like it's a get ready with me video. Or it's, a mom who's in a rush, who's just being like, y'all, I gotta tell y'all, this is a lifesaver. Like my husband can't believe how much happy I am since I got this thing. And then they ruffle in their bag and grab something out. And it's ads that don't look like ads. And they call this UGC, user-generated content. And that's the new style that works best in ads for the last, I would say, 5 years. That's dominated most of e-commerce advertising. This is the first time I've seen a politician do this. So like if you compare, I don't know, like Kamala and how perfectly manicured everything was, like her image, her pantsuit, her like professional photography, her like fake phone call with somebody, but then you see that the phone wasn't even on and she's just chuckling to nobody. Like it was all super, super fake and polished. And this guy's doing like man on the street interviews, holding the microphone. You can literally hear like it kind of rubbing against his jacket sometimes accidentally. Like it's wabi-sabi, dude. It's the perfection in the imperfection to go full circle there. This kind of blew me away. I don't know if I'm just like overly nerding out about this, but from the topic, like halal chicken and rice is $10, it should only be $8, to the style of the video, I immediately was like, I get why this guy won.
And on Saturday, the election was taking place yesterday. He spent the whole day walking around New York and like doing like these very raw looking videos, talking to people. And I think that this is just proof, which we already have had this proof, that charisma matters more than ideas in reality. And this is not like a takeaway that like, this is a very obvious takeaway, but this is just another example because his charisma is off the charts and he has just been like killing it. When his ideas, in my opinion, are just absolutely insane, but because of the style of marketing, it's done wonderful. Young people react to this stuff. And by the way, this is what we need. Like Governor Cuomo, the guy who was running for him, he's an old guy. He's in his 60s, maybe 70s. And he would never in a million years grab his cell phone and just start talking to it. But that's what you need. I think my friend, or our friend Austin Reef, tweeted something out and he said, the next politicians and the next presidents are going to be podcasters and Substackers. And that sounds like a ridiculous statement. People who write newsletters and people who have podcasts, that sounds ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. And I totally buy into it.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be a podcaster president. Why? Because they're going to have built a following before they run. So they're going to build the audience before they go run. 2, they're going to be trained with 10,000 hours of storytelling, communication, of how to make a point. So I think that's going to be one archetype. The other one is going to be short form video creators. I think Roberto, our friend, said this thing. He goes, whether this guy's agenda is good or bad for New York is irrelevant. He told the best story. This is why Steve Jobs said that the storyteller is the most powerful person in the world. A lie told as a good story can never beat the truth trapped in a bad story. Or I think it can always beat the truth trapped in a bad story. And then because I had tweeted this thing. So when I saw this, so I saw the second video. I don't know if you've seen this one, but can you hear this?
Dude, you know what's funny is I don't have to hear what he's saying, and I could sense the charisma.
Well, so he's speaking Hindi in this video. And I think he does actually speak Hindi, but it made me realize, oh, dude, 11 Labs is going to make like $1 billion next election cycle because every politician is going to translate everything they're saying into all languages using AI instantaneously. Like, why would you not? You're just going to pick up free views.
That's
we
crazy.
did this. We started doing this with our MFM episodes. Ben was like, hey, I think I can get more views if we dub our episodes into another language. So now, if you're on YouTube and you click the settings wheel and you click like audio track, you could select Spanish or Hindi on some of the episodes, and it's going to be all the episodes soon. Because we went to 11 Labs, we're like, hey, dudes, will you guys help us like translate this? And immediately, we now get tens of thousands of views a month that we weren't getting before in Spanish and in Hindi. And there's probably people in Mexico right now that think we just speak Spanish, that we're their favorite Spanish podcast. And if they meet us, they'll be sorely disappointed.
That's a really good insight. I have not seen this video of him. Is this video dubbed? Is this a fake video? Or
this,
an
I
AI
think,
video?
is real. He kind of looks like he might speak Hindi, or maybe it's dubbed. I can't tell exactly, but I guess that's the point. I wouldn't know. AI tools have gotten so good that I would never know. And I actually tweeted this out. I said, I could 1,000% create an AI politician that could win over, a city election. Now, of course, you can't actually run if you're not a human being, but whatever. And I said, here's how I would do it. I would make a likable sort of guy next door character, like this guy. I would create 100x more video content than my opponent, because Andrew Cuomo is not going to be able to keep up with my AI engine. I don't know if you've seen people who do this. They create an AI workflow that's an agent that scrapes it comes up. There's one agent that's just brainstorming topics. It's like looking at Reddit, it's looking at TikTok trends, et cetera, and it's brainstorming topics. Then they have a scripter agent that writes a 1-minute TikTok script. Then they have a video generation agent that creates a video that has your AI avatar speaking it, like HeyGen or 11 Labs.
Who's doing this?
There's people that are doing this. They run what they call faceless channels. So they run channels on Instagram and TikTok that get millions of views.
Like with B-roll and narration?
But it doesn't have to be B-roll anymore, because now they use an AI avatar. So they just put a person there. And they're like, cool, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to wake up and get ready and have a nice house, all this, but I'll just make an AI character that does this. And you can just create an AI character that does exactly this. And then, but the cool thing is they automated the entire workflow from coming up with the idea, scripting it, recording it, and then actually like scheduling it, posting it, analyzing the data, and feeding that back into the engine.
What's an example?
And it's almost
of a
like, dude, if you guys applied your talents to something useful, you'd be incredible. But it's amazing that you can even do this.
I'm reading a book called A Promised Land. It's Obama's biography or autobiography. He wrote it, but it's old. It's 10 years old. But I was at the airport and it looked cool. I'm at the point in the book where he was like, I was getting my ass beat in the election because I was too long-winded. And my campaign manager criticized one of my debates. And he's like, dude, you're answering the question. He's like, yeah, they asked me a question. I'm giving them an answer. And like, it's kind of nuanced and it's long. And like,
thorough answer.
Yeah, I'm giving like a good answer. And he goes, yeah, that's bullshit. That's not how you win a debate. And that's not how you win votes. You don't give an answer. You're not answering the question. The question is irrelevant. All people want to know is, can they trust you with their vote? And like, are you a brand that they want to get behind? Stop answering the question and tell a story that lets them know that they can get behind you. And he was like, he goes, that rubs me the wrong way, but that's the game, and I will play that game. And there's like a distinct difference in like, we know him now. Obama is regarded as a fairly charismatic, good storyteller. He was like, that was the change.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know Lulu?
No.
She's really cool. She's a very interesting person to follow on Twitter and whatnot. So Lulu, I think she was the head of comms at like Palantir or something like that. I don't, or Anduril, I think it was. But she does a good job. What she posts regularly is basically comms advice, communication advice, PR / how executives should communicate. And I think Anduril was always an interesting one because like instead of trying to conform as this like boring government contractor, they let their freak flag fly. So she tweeted this out. She goes, "It sounds so basic, but he is too likable to lose. Friendly demeanor, smiles with his eyes, seems earnest. Being liked outweighs policies, experience, and nonsensical plans. Quote, I just have a good feeling about that person can override almost anything." And then Harley, the CEO of Shopify, said, "Vibes." It's like, oh man, we're sort of vibe voting now, and it's like actually we're kind of always
we've
vibe
always
voting.
been doing that, man. We've always been doing that. JFK was one of the most. JFK had like a 70% approval rating when he was murdered, and he was well loved. He was our Princess Diana or whatever for that generation. Like
Right.
he was well loved, and he was well loved because he was incredibly likable. That's like his policies were fine, but it was because he looked great. He had a beautiful wife who was poised. He had a lovely family with really white teeth. Like that is why he won, because he was very likable and good looking.
So I'm likable might not even be the word because you might look at Trump and be like, wow, like, would you say he's likable? Like,
Well, he's funny. He's funny.
He's charismatic. So
Yeah.
did I ever tell you about the time where, so I had this friend who's like a billionaire, successful tech guy. And he sends me a Google Doc one day called The President. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And I open it up and I have no idea what to expect. I think he might be running for president. I don't know what this is. And it was basically a pitch for a television show. And he laid out a case and he basically said, if you look at the last, I forgot what it was, like, but I'm just gonna make up some numbers. If you look at the last 10 elections, you would look for a pattern. You'd say, is it always Democrats? Is it always Republicans? Does it always switch between Democrat and Republican? Is it based on the economy? Is it based on the person's height? Like if you tried to look for a correlation, where would you find it? And he goes, the highest correlation you could find is that the more charismatic candidate wins. And he goes, ever since the advent of radio and television, when our primary way of getting messages out scaled up like crazy, the more charismatic candidate wins, whether this was Clinton or Reagan. It wasn't Reagan like an actor or something like this.
Yeah, he was good looking. He dressed great.
He was going through history. And basically 2020 was kind of the only exception where Biden won. And I would say Biden was the less charismatic candidate than Trump. That seems to be like the outlier. But the guy's case was basically, he's like, I think in his case, he didn't want Trump to win. And he's like, the problem is Trump is incredibly charismatic. He's able to capture people's attention. He says things that are very memorable. He says things that excite certain people and inflame certain people, but it's all attention that he gets free earned media. So he had this idea to create a television show. And he's like, this sounds a little bit silly, but he's like, I think for the Democratic Party, which is the party he was a part of, he's like, I think we need to start nominating more charismatic candidates. And if you look at the last few, they have not been the most charismatic. He's like, we're sort of, it's a captured party and we lack putting forward charismatic candidates since Obama. Obama was one of the most charismatic candidates. And he said, here's what I think we should do. Just like, American Idol or The Voice or whatever, there's The Apprentice even, there's been proven shows where you can have like, let's say an 8 to 12 week period where you start with 10 people and then they get eliminated and in the end you have a winner. He's like, what if we did this for presidential candidates? So you would take 12 candidates, not random people off the street, but people that genuinely are thinking that they want to run. And so you'd get Pete Buttigieg and others in this batch. And he's like, week by week, let's say they go to a small town in Pittsburgh and they're going to actually meet with the car manufacturers there, whatever, like, some like presidential type of shit that they do. And they have to present a plan. And then it's actually like, and the judges for that week will be the car manufacturer people. And then they'll sort of pick which candidate they felt best understood them and was able to address their needs. And week by week, you sort of eliminate candidates. He's like, by the end of this 12-week thing, we'll have captured so much attention and hopefully found a candidate that's like won the hearts of people. The people will know their backstory. They'll know what they're all about. They'll have seen them in a more human light. And we will have filtered out the less charismatic candidates for the more charismatic candidates. He's like, I'm not saying charisma is the end all be all. Like ideally at the beginning, you try to screen people that you think are worthy, candidates to lead. But amongst that worthy pool, give a boost to the most charismatic candidate. I thought this was fascinating, and I really wanted him to do it. And he was friends with Mark Burnett, the guy who created Survivor and a bunch, maybe Bachelor or whatever, like a bunch of other major reality shows. And he's like, I'm going to talk to Mark, and I think we're going to do this. And I hit him up recently, and I was like, whatever happened to that idea? And he's like, I just decided I didn't want an avalanche of problems in my life for creating this, and I decided it wasn't worth. I have a great life, and it really wasn't worth what it was going to do. And Biden won in 2020, and so he felt like maybe I was wrong. Maybe there's not as much of a need for this. But isn't that interesting, dude?
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I wish you would have done that.
I feel like that would work too. Like it sounds like it's an idea that I think is easy to make fun of. It's also an idea that I think would be effective at the stated mission.
It's easy to make fun of because we don't want it to be true, but it is true. Like, who's a really good example of this is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
He was such a charismatic, interesting person. He was good to look at. Like you wanted to look like he looked like even the people who become our leaders who aren't really good looking, they're still sort of interesting to look at. Like Donald Trump is intriguing to look at. He looks like remarkable in a weird way. You know what I'm saying? Arnold Schwarzenegger is a perfect example of this. Can I show you one last thing
Which one?
that I think is funny? So I found this, and I think I've talked to this guy, Brian, and he was cool. So I don't want to shit on him, but I'm more so shitting on people who...
This line of thinking, maybe.
This line of thinking. And...
all right, so let's explain what it is. Guy, Brian
explain the date.
He says, I asked, quote, what company is worth less than 10 billion today that you could be worth 500 billion plus in a few decades? I have received 710 answers. Here's the top 20 picks that have 50x potential. And this tweet has 18,000 likes. You know, it was probably, I don't know how many views, but like.
What year was this?
Over 1 million. This is in 2021, July of 2021, when times were good, when everybody was making a ton of money in the stock market.
And he lists 20 companies. And these are ones that this guy who I think he has a whole YouTube channel towards picking stocks. And I don't know if these were his picks necessarily or if they were his audience's picks.
And this guy has 600,000 followers. His bio says, I teach investors how to analyze businesses, stock fundamentals, and valuation teacher. DM Buffett for premium courses, free ebook in my description. Okay, that's this guy.
So this was in 2021. And I just was curious, like, was he right? Like, what's his deal? I'm almost positive that not only did none of them 50x, I am pretty sure that most of them are down from even from this tweet. But
so of the 20 that he hand selected, somebody says this has to go down in history as the best case of stupidity of the crowds. Here's where we're at 3 years later. So 3 years later, only one company is up, and it's up 6%. The average company is down 70% on this list, with several of them minus 95%, minus 95%, minus 98%, minus 90%, minus 97, minus 86, minus 99, and of course, Ozon, which was an e-commerce platform in Russia, which is delisted.
And I think Open Door is now, and so this tweet that you're looking at, that was even 6 months ago. I'm almost positive that Open Door is delisted and Virgin is down even more. I think Lemonade is delisted or out of business. Context Logic, I think, is out of business, which is Wish.
All right, we should post an update here. And now we're at 5 years later. Here's how the stupidity of the crowd has done.
And my point in bringing this up isn't the actual results. The results are not good. That's the summary. The results are actually really bad. But it's just crazy how hard it is to pick winners. It's very challenging. This guy has 600,000 followers. I assume that he does this all the time for his job. And you still can't nail it. It's just so challenging.
Is it though? Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I did. Back in I graduated in 2010, and I started my stock portfolio, I think right around like senior year of college. And I bought, I believe, 6 stocks. And my dad was telling me just buy the index. But I'm like, Dad, I got this, right? I had the Dunning-Kruger effect. I thought I knew a lot more than I knew. And I think I bought 5 or 6 stocks.
How much money?
I mean, I didn't have any, but I had $25,000. I had probably $60,000 total.
That's a lot of money.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, even though the results were great, it didn't, on a very small base, that doesn't do a whole lot for you. I bought Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Tesla.
What years?
It was basically 2010, 2011. When I bought those stocks. So I did the thing you're not supposed to do. I picked. I didn't pick with any sort of brilliance. I was like, these are like obviously just seemed like the good companies of the world to me at the time. And, I did make a mistake because I sold Tesla earlier. Like I sold it probably 2014 or something like that. So that would have been a much bigger return. So, I think I still am in the case study of like, it's really freaking hard to do. Even if you buy right, you'll sell wrong and shit like that. Like I bought Bitcoin early and sold some early and then bought it back again and sold it again, bought it back again. I'm not saying I'm smart. I do dumb things. But I guess what I'm saying is sometimes it's actually kind of obvious. I think one of the reasons that what this guy did was so hard was he was looking for a 50x. And he's like, what company is small today that's going to be massive tomorrow? Which of course, if he knew, that'd be fantastic. But there is a simple way of looking at things. Like right now, for example, I put my money into my own little AI index. And I didn't spend much time on this, and I'm going to go back and do a little more research. But basically, it's very obvious, I think, at this moment in time in the world, that AI is going to be a very big deal. That the biggest winners over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be ones that are benefiting from AI in some way. Whether they're NVIDIA, they're selling chips, whether they're companies like Google or Facebook that are able to use AI in order to make all their services better and slash tens of thousands of employees that they don't need, shit like that, right? Like I think it's pretty obvious that AI is a big deal. And I think if you put in the time to just think about like, instead of buying the generic S&P 500, like what's the equivalent of the AI 50 or the AI 20? And it's like 20 companies that I believe are well positioned. It's hard for them to lose given the AI tailwind. And again, it's a little bit naive because you might say, well, NVIDIA today, they have 90% gross margins and that they're going to get competed away and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it's like easy. I'm just saying, I think an index of AI focused companies, that doesn't mean companies that are like, all chip makers or whatever, but I'm just saying companies that are going to disproportionately benefit from AI and are going to adopt AI and get the benefits of it. I just feel like that's an obvious thing today.
Yeah,
that's the version of me in 2010 being like, I don't know, me and all my friends use the internet like crazy. I think I should just like own the big internet companies. That seems like a good idea.
The issue is not can you pick winners, because I think that like when we saw Facebook was valued at, when it was hit a low, I think a year and a half ago, everyone who has ever bought any Facebook ads was like, yeah, this is undervalued. This is a great company. The issue is the amount of times that you have lost using that same logic. And so if you were to take a lump sum of money and you would buy and sell like occasionally or rather often versus just letting it sit and ignoring, like if you average.
I'm actually going to go back and just backtest this for me specifically, and I'll publish my result. I'll bring it to the next episode because I'm curious. And I would say I think there's a more likely chance that buying and selling and picking has underperformed. I would assume that to be true. I think there's a chance it's not been for me, but I really want to go get the exact answer because and I'll include. I think I should include crypto because I think that was kind of like buying and selling, picking, and I want to see the returns of if I had just invested the same amount of money in the same times in just the index versus my picking. I just want to see for myself what I've done and give it honest, be able to look reality in the face of like, how's this working for me?
So let me tell you this. Let me tell you this crazy stat that Ankur told me. So Jerry Buss, the guy who owned the Lakers, they recently just sold the Lakers for $10 billion. So he bought the Lakers for $67 million in 1979, and he sold it for 150 times his money at $10 billion in 2025. And yet, had he taken that $60 million and instead just invested it in the S&P 500, he would have been able to have had $13 billion. So he would have had more money. Now,
that's stupid.
What year?
That's stupid.
It's not stupid. But listen, the top comment was, think of all, it's not incorrect. I mean, it's just math.
It's acting like he didn't take money every year in gains from the business.
He could have lost
Lakers
money every
spit
year.
Off cash flow every year.
Do they? Dude,
Yeah.
most winning teams do not make a profit. Most
That's
winning
not true.
teams,
They
it's
show
100%
paper,
true.
they can show paper losses. I know team owners. I talked to them about this. I was like, is this true? Do you guys actually lose money on this thing? And they're like, no, most years we're making money. Occasionally, if we're way over the luxury tax, we get a huge penalty. Then yes, we can lose money in that 1 year. But no, we're not idiots. We're not burning hundreds of, like people say like, oh, they lost $200 million this year. He's like, I'm not losing $200 million every year.
The top comment was like, yeah, but are you adding into the P&L all the women that he was able to get because of him owning the Lakers?
Like, forgetting the joy of owning the Lakers, which is already congratulations, you own the S&P 500 versus you own the Lakers. Forgetting that, the Lakers are a business that has been generating cash, and so all he's taking into account is just the exit price and none of the 30 years of cash flow.
Well, I don't really look at the facts whenever I'm making a statement.
But I think it did make for a good headline. And
Yeah,
it is
I'm
kind of
just-
stunning what, I don't know, 11% compounding over 40 years actually does. Pretty crazy.
I like doing this. All right, that's it. That's a pod.